Welcome to the Clutch Burners Podcast, your home for stick shift drag racing, stick shift tech, stick shift trash talking, and more. And tonight, I've got my awesome co-host right over there, Rich Guido, the Canadian Chuck Norris.
And that was the Bang Shift Billy introducing us. And then we got a couple other special guests. Master of Broken.
Oh, they're special, all right.
we got Chris Hein, my new nemesis. I just follow him around and get my butt kicked at every event by him. And Brent Stephens, I think he's the master of block breaking currently.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure he'll be kicking our butts shortly again as well.
Yes, and so I'm feeling a little outpaced tonight because we've got 3 Canadians to 1 American. And I think I'd like to start off with the very first question, because this is kind of how it went at race week. So how did you guys feel? So let me back up. We've got Chris Hein, number 1 stick shift winner for race week. Brent Stevenson, number 2 stick shift winner, and Canadian Chuck Norris, number 3. Now, how did you guys feel when an American came up to your event, Miles of Mayhem, and won, kicked your asses? You had to send 3 down for retribution?
Well, the reality is we wanted you to come back. So in order for you to come back, we had to make you feel special. And,
oh, my God. Right. So that was what the rain dance was about. Is that correct? We'll talk more about that, because that's pretty damn funny. We have a lot of good stories tonight.
I think we should start off by, so you want to be a stick car racer, and let's each one of us talk about what we broke on this event.
Oh,
that's where we
Lord.
should start. I think we should start with the 2 most catastrophic ones first. Looking at you, Brent. You want to
well, he's got both of them, actually.
Yeah. Everything was going good till the last day, till the last pass, actually.
Well, maybe Brent, give us a little background on your car, and then you should give us a little preview to just before the other event, which would have been Miles of Mayhem 2 also, because you had a lot of catastrophe going on. So Brent Stephens, you got the floor.
Thanks, man. Basically, if my car would have started out like it's ran this year, I don't know if it would still be the same combo it is. For a couple of years, I had pretty good luck with it. It ran pretty good, and it was pretty problem-free. And this year...
Tell us what you got, the whole platform. Give us the whole breakdown.
It's a 69 Dart with a Gen 3 Hemi. It was started out the year like a 399 cubic inch, just a slight stroker. T-Tech heads on it, twin 67 turbos, a GF5R, Fab 9, just an 850 cage in the car. And had been a best of 871 at 162. And just one off you there. And then, so the first time I brought it out this year, I ended up breaking a valve. I didn't actually drop it. It broke and kind of beat up one cylinder. So we took it in, thrashed to get it all ready to go. So it was ready for Miles of Mayhem. My engine builder pulled through, CP pulled through. Everyone helped me to the full extent, and we got it back in time, just in time. I went to Mopar Madness the day before Miles of Mayhem, and the second pass, kind of shaking the engine out, I had a dome sensor fail, and it overboosted and went to 31 pounds. And for that was the most that that engine had ever seen. I typically only ran it to about 22 pounds, and the rods didn't like it, and they exited the block. And
so you really shook it up. You shook it out.
Yes, 100%. And wasn't ideal timing. Obviously, the day before Miles of Mayhem started, and so we were kind of heads in our laps. My son and I were pretty disgusted with the way everything looked and the way it was running, and we ended up going to my buddy's house, thrashed for a couple of days, got a motor that he had sitting in his garage, another Gen 3 Hemi, a 392 cubic inch. Got it back in the car and made it to second day of Miles of Mayhem, kind of caught up with all of you guys then, and was able to complete the week pretty effortlessly, actually. Like it didn't set the world on fire or nothing, but it ran really well. It ran like 590s in the 8th, and it seemed to be pretty consistent and happy. And then we took that same motor to race week, and it ran really good till it didn't.
And I want you to expand on that, but no matter what you believe, I think things happen for a reason. So tell us what happened, and then I'm going to tell you what I think. Well, you could tell us too, but it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, no, on the drives and on all the tracks, we didn't try and beat it to death by any means. We didn't have anything for you guys, but what I figured for the week, if I could run a fourth place finish, that was kind of a W for me, honestly, because I wasn't going to flog the motor to try and put the rods out of it, even though I ended up doing it. The whole plan was just keep it together, keep it happy.
This was a borrowed motor.
Yes, exactly. My buddy Lauren pulled through huge for me and didn't want to see me sitting for the rest of the summer is all it was. He's just like, man, I'm not using it, so go ahead and use it. So I wasn't too keen on doing it, and for the reason I'm sitting in now I got to fix this motor. But he's too. Yeah, he's super cool about it, and we'll get it fixed up though. But yeah, and so everything ran good all week. We got to Pueblo, broke the beams, so we were able to get our third place spot for the week. Then we were ready for the shootout, and we didn't really change anything for the shootout. We're still running it on about 20 pounds, and it was pretty happy. And we got to the finals, lined up with Brooks, and everything was still looking good. Didn't show any signs of any real problems. And we're on the 1-2 shift. It kind of nosed over and didn't feel right. And it kicked the back end out on me a little bit. And I was obviously spinning in my own oil. So I got out of it, and I'm trying to kind of gather up and figure out what was going down really. I checked oil pressure right away. And then I see Brooks coming across the center line. So I kind of got into the brakes pretty hard. And then I realized that after that, once I kind of got sorted out, I looked in the rear view and I seen lots of smoke, and then I knew it was bad. So, but yeah, that's the way it ended up, and I ended up kicking a rod out of it. I just got the motor out of the car today, and it looks like there was pretty bad heat in the crank. So I'm thinking it spun a bearing and kicked a rod is what happened. Didn't show any issues of oil pressure up to that point, but yeah, it's pretty, crank definitely got pretty hot.
Yeah. And had it not kicked a rod, what would have happened on that pass?
Well, Brooks and I were very, very close what we were running, so it was a pretty darn good chance that him and I would have been door handle to door handle going down the track. It should have been a real good race, actually. So yeah, it was definitely a blessing that I had problems in a way, because it very likely could have ended up with two cars being piled into each other down the track. So yeah.
Yeah. And in all fairness, he kicked out a freeze plug and dumped a bunch of coolant on his tires on his side of the track and came shooting across. I mean, you guys both had a great week, but again, like I would have rather seen a blown up motor, and he didn't really hit the wall too hard at all. But had that not happened, you guys would have had two smashed cars, and that would have been bad. So
and a couple things. I mean, that was the quick 16. So there's fast as heck 8, and then another 8, and then a quick 16. And it was pretty cool to see two stick cars in the final of the quick 16. You guys beat a lot of people.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Challenge.
I was definitely hoping it would work out that way, but I mean, we weren't. Who knows, right? Like when everything was shaken down. But yeah, it definitely made my day to see two stick cars in the final of that race. But.
And you won because Brooks crossed the line. So
yeah, I lucked into it, which was good. Got a little cash to go home with.
A little
right.
funds towards the rebuild.
Yes. 100%.
Yes. Well, this has been great, Rich. Should we wrap it up?
Yeah. Before we leave, Brent, one thing that impresses me is how consistent your car is. So do you recall what your 4 passes were that you handed in? What were your 4 passes, and what was your average?
I averaged 911 for the week. I had the first day I was kind of trying to get that clutch sorted out. I just got my twin 8-inch back from Advanced Clutches, and it was being all fresh and proper. It was definitely different, and I had to refine my clutch tune in it. And so it took me a few passes to kind of get sorted out in Pueblo, and I ended up handing in a 920 that first day. I think, like, had I kind of been in a better position, had a few passes on that clutch, I would have probably been able to tighten that up a little bit. But I handed in a 920 in Pueblo, then an 898 rather in Kearney, And then I was able to hand in a 916 and a 908 later in the week there. So it was kind of hanging on in low nines there. Pretty happy.
Yeah.
Super impressive car, and it's beautiful, I have to say.
Thank you.
yeah.
I'm poking fun at you, but the car is astounding. Like, it is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Who next? Mr. Hein?
Who next? Mr. Number One?
Mr. Number One?
He's not only your
Thank you.
nemesis, but he's mine too. Like, the two of you are making me start to make bad decisions. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the podcast.
How's it going today?
It's going pretty good.
Good.
So, Mr. Number One, how's it feel?
Thank you. Yeah, it feels good. It's I was definitely happy to make it all the way down there and all the way home. So that was the biggest thing. I mean, that's the farthest the car has drove on its new current combo. And I mean, we put quite a few miles on over the summer and stuff, but there was a few times where it also didn't make it home. So ended up in the back of a U-Haul once this summer. So I was happy that we were able to finish the entire trip.
Yeah, it's super impressive. Please tell people about the car, because it's one of these where we're watching you add weight to make the minimum weight, and it's just like, God, this just doesn't seem right.
Yeah. So it's a Factory 5 Racing 33 hot rod kit. I originally bought it in 2014. Got it on the road for its first vision, I guess, in 2017. Right in the fall. So I put a few miles on it that year. And then 2018, we really started putting some miles on it. Originally, it started out as just an iron block 6-liter. Put a cam in it, put some heads on it, nothing too fancy. Put a 4L70 behind it. And it stayed like that for a couple seasons. Ended up putting some nitrous on it. And with a lack of a good tuning management, basically it just kept hurting itself. So melted an exhaust valve, fried some piston rings, so we eventually got rid of that. It just wasn't working the way we wanted it to. So from there we ended up putting a LSA in it. It had a full LSA long block blower, still behind that same automatic. And at that point it was like a 980 car. It was really consistent, pretty good bracket racer type car, and I played in the modern muscle class in Miles of Mayhem for 2 seasons with that combo the way it was. So ended up getting second the second time around. The biggest thing with that class is it was limited to a 17-inch drive wheel, so we just played on the 17s, and then I couldn't fit into that class. Otherwise, it's kind of an oddball with a fiberglass body, and the majority of it's a steel tube chassis. So it's they could kind of argue it either way because it's still factory style, just not Ford factory style. But so then we
probably didn't mind it when it was exactly like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. But at that time, I finally broke the transmission. I don't know, I went 5 seasons on a 4L70, so I was pretty happy with that. But finally broke that transmission, and then it was kind of decision time. We decided we wanted to go a different direction with the car, and the choice had to be made. It was out of safety, it was out of cage at that point. It was out of power, it didn't have any more power in it. The rear end was the limits of what that thing probably wanted to do. It might have survived a little bit longer, but fuel system was at its limits, so everything kind of needed a redo. So I ended up tearing the car apart, and we decided, looking at all the rules and stuff, probably my best shot at being competitive in something was to go stick shift racing. And thankfully I had a light chassis, a light program to get it started with. So that was the biggest reason why we decided to go that route. So
you bought, you have a face-plated T56 Magnum in it, right?
Yeah. I basically just pulled G-Force and said, I'll just take whatever Rich has got. Because, I mean, if that thing can
the Rich Guido
live behind his, it should be able to live behind mine.
Yeah. So I have a question. So when you sold your purse, did that cover most of the transmission or?
No. Like I don't even know if that covered the shifter.
So you didn't have a real nice purse, is what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Well, I'm glad you got rid of it.
that's one thing they don't tell you beforehand is how expensive those things are. They're not. It's an expensive way to go racing, that's for sure. But it sure is a good time.
Yeah,
What did you break on this race week?
I didn't realize it until just the other day, but we twisted another input shaft. So.
Well, wait. What about the box full of airbags for your trailer?
Well, yeah, that's thanks to thanks to those Colorado highways. I mean, I thought I'd seen it all up here, but not quite. So
we do got to talk. So I want you to dive a little deeper on your setup on the car, engine and stuff specifically, because it's pretty damn fast. I mean, you were literally slowing it down all week just because you were past your cage cert of 850. But talk about the car, the setup, the weight, everything, because it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So the current combo, the latest combo now, will probably stay this way for a while. But so we did a bunch of fabrication work, put an 850 cage into the car, and then essentially did a back half. So we decided to go with a full 4-link wishbone style anti-roll bar. Good. It still needs a shock upgrade, but I still have the old shocks on it from before. But a good transmission, or sorry, a good rear end setup. The rear end is an 8.8, which was in the car before, but I put 9-inch housing ends on it, put 35 spline axles in it, a spool, did a bunch of bracing to it. So really beefed up that 8.8 and threw a set of 390 gears in the rear. So transmission is a G-Force, like we said, faceplated T56 Magnum, that double overdrive with the 063, I think is the overdrive. So it cruises nice down the highway. And the clutch is just an RXT twin disc. It's a RXT 1200 clutch, and it's been working pretty decent here so far. But after a pair of input shafts now, it might be time to go to that slipper world. So
I was thinking we could make. I can't imagine. I don't know how many I got in my garage, and Bill's got a stack in his.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Well, it's like a flower pot full.
Yeah. Well, I got to blame it on that.
garden now.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm gonna have to blame it on the maybe on that little motor. So this year we put together a Texas Speed came and helped me out, and we put together an LSA 388. So it's an LSA block. It's a stock block that they cut the sleeves out and re-sleeved it to a 4125 bore. Factory forged LSA crank, and then we did rods and pistons, 1/2-inch head studs, and it's a stock LS3 casting that's been ported. Cylinder head, nothing too special in the cylinder head, and we did a Holley low ram with a dual fuel setup and a shear fab air to water intercooler, and then providing all the power is a pair of Garrett 68 millimeter turbos. So
it's GX35s. Is that correct?
Just a G35 1050. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the kind of the latest gen that they just came out with, I think last year, basically. So
I think they came out with a G40.
Yeah, I think the G40 is bigger, just a bigger size. So the next step.
I mean, up. I wouldn't know anything about that. You forced me to go shopping. Damn it!
Yeah. Better get the biggest ones you can. Pair 88 should spool just fine.
Oh man!
And you had some issues with the trailer though too. With you tried like removing the axle out of it, didn't you? Or?
Yeah, thankfully race week started before we even got there. So, so on the way to
talk about it. Yeah.
Sorry,
You
on the
got to
way
talk
around.
about the trailer. Give us a little background on the trailer because
Sure.
it's a little more than just a trailer.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an overgrown trailer. So it's 5 feet wide and 11.5 feet long, about 4 feet tall. Uh, so it's a big unit, but it's got a queen size bed in the front. That's where we stay. It's got air conditioning and some upper cabinets and stuff to store all of our stuff. So we just sleep there. It's nice. You can sleep at the track. You can sleep at the hotel, sleep at Bill's house, anywhere really. So, and then the center is, or the middle of it is storage. Just put a bunch of totes and stuff in there, and then the back opens up to a little kitchen. So I got a mini fridge, a little 2-burner stove, and the barbecue sits back there as well. So it's got some water on board and a few other odds and ends, but it other than just the overgrown size of it, it's a real nice package for the drag and drive style stuff. Because I mean, you're hungry at the track, you can cook up some food. I mean, one night we were on sick week, we were wrenching in the parking lot at 1 o'clock in the morning, and everyone was hungry, so we just started cooking some food. So stuff like that is pretty nice. But I just did a revision on the suspension. It was a torsion axle, and I put airbags underneath it before this last trip. But we smashed a motocross jump coming into Denver, and pretty much ripped it out. Didn't even realize it at first. Blew an airbag right away, so I replaced that on the side of the road, and then we just wanted to get out of there. So I didn't exactly go around inspecting it all that well, and I probably should have. But we made it to Bill's house. Thought it was okay. Didn't really think much of it. And then as we were cruising down the road, it blew another airbag, and so we put it on the trailer and hauled it the rest of the way to Pablo. And when we unloaded it, I put another airbag in it and didn't really think much of it until I really I got looking around underneath and realized that the trailing arm basically ripped the tubing of the axle off. So the only thing that was left holding on the one side was one tab for the shock mount. So we limped over to a marine repair in Pablo there, and that guy was nice enough to lend us some floor space and a welder. So I basically took the axle all the way out of the camper, re-welded it, put a bunch of gusseting in there, put it all back together, and then we were back on the road again. So, and then after that we didn't have any more problems. So.
Well, maybe not. No problems.
Well, axle related problems. So.
Oh, yeah.
What other problems could you have had, Mr. Hein?
Well, at least the car's got a real nice gouge in the back bumper now. So the fiberglass decided to that it wanted to stop the car, or stop the trailer. We were cruising along just north of Billings at, I don't know, 10 or 11 at night, whatever time it was, dark, and the trailer ball, the nut must have backed itself off over, I don't know how long, but I think it was rocking back and forth probably until it broke, and then lost the trailer. But safety chains did their job. It didn't go. It stayed behind the car, thankfully. And actually, when it fell off, it was just grinding in sparks, and it was like, we had no idea what was going on because we were just cruising at that point. And so slam on the brakes, and of course it slams into the car, and it was the jack that met the bumper. So I'll put a race sticker over it or something for next week, I guess. But
and actually, Rich posted a video of you cruising down the road on Instagram.
Yeah.
If you look at it real carefully, you can see that ball jiggling in the video.
Yeah.
It was just before that.
We noticed after the fact. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
Well, I think a couple other things that Chris failed to mention is you pretty much built that whole car, right?
I had help, but the whole thing did get built in this garage. So I had a couple of buddies, Steve Gronick and Colin G, came over quite a bit and gave me a hand. So they help me lots with with planning and that kind of stuff, and then all the cage and rear suspension fabrication. So Colin's really good at bend and tube. I mean, Steve is too. They help me both equally. So bend and tube and getting all that stuff built for that cage. It's a tight cage in a small car, so it took a lot of fiddling to get it right. And then just trying to work around everything else, try to work around a big gas tank in a small car. Still try to have a little bit of trunk, all the extra stuff that has to go into those drag and drive cars. It just there was nothing that we could just buy and bolt in. Everything got fabricated and made so that it fit, where it needed to go, because space is pretty limited. So
Yeah. If
And the
you're
car,
ever at
sorry.
one of these events with, and you see Chris there, you got to check out the build because it's pretty damn impressive. Much like
Thanks.
Brent's,
Yes.
they're both phenomenal builds,
Yes.
fast as heck, and both are largely built by their owners, so that's pretty cool. One thing Brent didn't touch on, and neither did Chris, but both of you guys are running Mickey Thompson's slicks.
Yeah.
Brent,
Yeah.
I think, is running with tubes.
Yeah, I'm running a 2810.5W in mine with tubes. Yeah, on a 12-inch wheel.
Nice.
Yeah. I might have to take a page out of that book here pretty soon, because it's sure wiggly up in the top end on those slicks. So
Golly. Yeah, and some of the nice fabrication too is the 2 45-pound plates you have under the front of the car. And what's that for? It's to make the minimum weight.
yeah, to make it weigh a little bit more.
Oh God.
So,
To have such problems. I'm usually going the other direction.
yeah, there's a few of those things in the car that were just like, there's no point in spending money on lightweight parts when I got to add weight anyway. So
Yeah, and it's an iron block, you said too, right?
it is an aluminum block. Yeah. So the biggest reason why I went with the aluminum block was the heat dissipation. The radiator's not very big in that thing, and I have no grill space. It's not like I can put a bigger one in there, so I'm limited on the rad size. So I went with the aluminum block. That was the biggest reason behind that, because if I had better cooling capacity, I probably would have went with an aftermarket steel block. They would have been similar in price, but they had a lot more power. So
Yeah, that's
Nice,
what you need
nice.
is more power.
yeah, more power.
Right.
Are you running an oil cooler, Chris?
I am now.
Yeah.
So that was something that I just was actually working on today. Is I mounted an engine oil cooler. So it's never ran that far, that fast, that hard for that long. So so we realized that the oil gets a little hot. So it's got a cooler on it now.
Do you monitor oil temp?
No. See, no sensors, no problems, right? So
That's right. So why do you need a cooler?
because it starts smoking out of the breathers when it gets really hot. It likes to let you know. So
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm still here working away up front.
yeah, yeah. Maybe knock her down to just to 80 there, Rich. So,
We were just doing the speed limit. Of course, he's pulling a house, so that's
Right.
he got a little bit more RPM than me as well. And
yeah.
we were working. We were climbing a mountain. Was that in Wyoming? Yeah, I think that was in Wyoming, wasn't it? Or were we in
Yeah.
Montana? I think it was still in Wyoming. Yeah. Well, Bill, do you want to go next and tell us what you broke on this?
What? Break me? Oh man. So this year started off to be a great year. I did the first race week, got first place in stick class, and then I drove to Canada, surprised you, won that, and then was behind Mr. Chris Hein pretty solid for second place until we left Kearney, and we were, I don't know, a couple hours down the road, and my co-pilot Jamie and I, the car kind of bumped twice. I was like, what was that? And so I went over to my EGT screen to look real quick. Everything looked good. accept the oil temp because guess what? I have oil temp monitor. And at that point, it was about 220. And over the next 45 seconds, it went to like 232. And I pulled over and I was like, what is going on? And we checked the oil and it was a little low. So we added 2 quarts and then started up, went down the road, like, I don't know, another half a mile maybe. And I was like, oh, something's not right. It doesn't sound right. So we pulled over and I think you'd pulled up at that point, Rich, and we started it and it made some ugly noises.
Shut it off. I'm like, shut it off.
Yeah, shut it off.
That's enough.
And pulled the valve cover, and I think 3 of the push rods were not in the cups on the rocker arms, and that's bad. Like, how does that even happen? Like, collapsed lifter? No, it's got to be like the bearings came out of the roller bearings because there's just not enough clearance in there. And so we swapped some parts over, and then I was like, we need to pull the other side and look. Pulled the other side, and there was like 4 of them out, and it broke the end off of one of the push rods. And I was like, oh, God. And then that's where he pulled the plug. I was like, we don't have the parts to fix this. Something else is wrong. Towed the car. Long story short, I pulled the motor after talking to Tess and Tony. And as I got the motor out, I was like, oh, it kicked out a cam bearing. And they were like, oh, yeah, you cracked the block. I'm like, what? I'm like, no way. Like, yeah, we've done that before. And sure as shit, that's what it was. That is a hairline crack in the cam tunnel. And that's a dart block. And that was it. So I didn't finish. It got the DNF.
Yeah,
You guys are wrenching on the side of the road in the rain, and meanwhile, Brent and I are sipping beers at Bill's house.
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got home at 3 a.m. that night. Had to sit in the car for an hour waiting for a thunderstorm to pass. Like, it was, yeah, there was a lot going on that night. And as some of you know, I don't do so great late at night. And we got home at 3 a.m. I was just so tired. So yeah. Yeah, and I had the honor of having like 10 of you guys at my house. It was very cool, actually. We had a lot of people staying at the house and a lot of cool activity going on, and people sleeping in their home in the driveway and everything. And and it was kind of funny because throughout the week, apparently there were some of these things placed around my house. And for those of you who can't see the video, there's 2 little magnetic dicks here. And apparently there's 2 or 3 more, or I don't even know how many that I haven't found yet. So any hints would be nice, guys. It's actually pretty funny, but yeah, it was a blast, like just having everybody here, and especially the short drive day. Even though I was out, I still had such a blast. I got to ride, and matter of fact, I rode with Bill Leake, and he's got a 33 Factory 5, and it was just awesome. Just way less stress knowing I was out, didn't have to worry about my stuff, and just kind of enjoyed the week. But apparently when I was sleeping, there were dicks abound.
Oh, they were placed while you were awake. You just weren't around.
I was busy being a good host.
Yeah. And you were a fantastic host. Yeah.
Thanks. No, it was awesome. I hope to do it again. But we'll see what happens with race week now that supposedly it's the final season for Bannerman, so it's done.
Yeah. Well, I can describe my broken parts. I mean,
yes.
So the same day that Bill pulled over because he had a hot oil temperature, it was probably 40 minutes before that. All of a sudden, my coolant temperature started going up, and it was pretty cold out. And I'm like, well, there's only one reason that the temperature goes up when it's cold out, and that's usually because there's no water in the engine. So all week I was kind of fighting with my boost controller. I had changed my wastegate springs and trying to get the bias table and the closed loop boost right. We ended up leaving the boost controller in test mode, and thankfully Mr. Blasco has a good theory around where to set your air pressure regulator or CO2 pressure regulator, and that's set it to about the most boost you ever want to see. And a good thing we did that, because that's exactly where it went. I mean, I didn't want to see 23 pounds of boost, but that's what it saw. And it seemed
And it was
fine.
calling for how much? How much was it actually calling for?
Well, it was calling for, oh yeah, 40 psi, I think.
Which is 500 kPa,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It
And you
couldn't get.
normally make about how much kPa?
Yeah,
Like when
usually I'm
you,
like 17, so I'm like 207 to 210 kPa is all I usually I'm running. So I was
okay.
substantially higher, and the only thing that saved it from going higher was the fact that the regulator was at like 25 psi, so it could only put that much on the dome. So it's pretty funny. Blasco harassed me, tell me like it's fine. See, it loves that boost. I will say, 23 pounds with 521 cubes. Oh, that feels really good. Really good. Like, not, I don't know if it's like catch Chris Hein good, but it felt really good.
How much power do you think that is on your setup, Rich?
I bet you it's got to be close to 2,000 at the crank.
Whew. And your
Uh,
new crank was okay with that, it sounds like.
yeah, I was chatting with Brent yesterday. We were chatting about what rods are in my motor and what are they good for. They're a billet Crower rod, so a steel rod. So yeah, it should be fine. Anyway, so I'm cruising behind Bill, and I'm like, I got to pull over. I'm getting hot. So sure enough, crack the rad cap, and it's nothing but air coming out of there. So I know what that means. Means it needs more water. So I filled it up with water. And figured
Where
I
did,
got,
where
I got a
did it
little work.
go?
I got a little work to do. I've this isn't the first time I've heard a head gasket, but so when Bill messages me, he's like, "Yeah, it's kind of a jumbled message," and I'm thinking he's mocking me about my coolant temperature, but he wasn't. So we all pulled over there the first time, added oil. It was probably only 5-10 minutes later. We pulled over the second time by Bill's best friend's house there, and
Oh my God. Oh, I can
stuff
talk
about that,
about that
Bill.
too.
I'm like, hey, why don't
Oh,
we just leave your car at this farm right here? Typically they're
yeah.
that's what it looked like.
It was about, it was dark. What time was it? 9 o'clock, maybe? 8? I don't even know.
It
It
was
was
sounded
dark.
close to 10 or something. Yeah.
So, so we're like, okay, maybe. So I walk up to the house and it's dark. And as I get into the yard, there is crap everywhere. Like tools out in the mud, stuff tearing apart. I'm like, oh, this is I don't know about this. And I go and walk up to the front door, and there is a giant stovepipe coming out of the front door lashed to the gutter. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Like a wood stovepipe. There's some dogs barking. I can see somebody through the window, and the garage door is open, and there's just more junk in there too. And I'm like, ooh, I don't know about this. And this guy comes out, no shirt, giant belly, drunk as a skunk. I can hardly understand him. He's like, "What? How you doing? I'm doing. Yeah, you can park down over here and just 2 roads down." I'm just like, "Oh my God!" I walk back, and what did I say, Rich?
We
We're
are
not
not
leaving.
leaving my car here.
No, not at all. We're gonna use my tow rope if we have to, but that was the decision point where I called AAA and got that going, and then it was a 93-mile tow to PFI's shop, and then from there, Trevor had his trailer there, and Matt drove their TRX, and we put it on the trailer and towed it to my house, and got back at like 3 a.m. And yeah, everybody was sleeping at my house, and I wasn't even there. So
Yeah, shout out to Trevor and Brent and crew there from PFI for helping out again.
oh, huge, yeah, yeah, it would have been. Yeah, it would have been well. It was a long night, but it could have been longer. So yes,
Yeah.
thank you guys very much.
So I ended up abandoning Bill on the side of the road because I still had to follow the route because I was still in, and I was pretty sure I was going to have to change some head gaskets before I went racing the next day. But we proceeded. Actually, it was Derek Hansen. Ended up catching up with him at the checkpoint, and then we thought we might as well do the rest of the route. And we got lost like many others, and ended up climbing this mountain. There's no service, and so ended up getting into Bill's around 3 a.m, and then got to bed at 3, woke up at 6, and then started ripping and tearing and changed both head gaskets. And after I changed the head gaskets and went to the track, I realized right away that, I think my head gasket's been leaking for some time. In fact, I'm not sure that it's a 70 thou 5-layer MLS had ever actually sealed. I don't know if it was a special Blasco treatment on these 5-layer MLS with the copper paint, but
that was all over my floor.
oh, that's why I said Matt painted the copper head gasket.
Yeah. I was cleaning up my new shop, which I have a white floor in there, and I'm looking over in the corner, and I'm like, what in the hell is this? And I could see the line. It looked like a snake where the electrical cord was and stuff. And I'm like, what is this? And so I got a little acetone and a rag, and I started wiping it, and that rag came out like copper colored. I'm like, oh, they must have sprayed the head gaskets right here. And so I had to move everything and clean the floor. It was the Blasco gift that just kept on giving.
I actually thought he painted them outside, but I was half asleep and head down, ass up, wrenching.
It's all good. It's all good.
But and then that was really it as far as I knew. And then when I came home, I rattled the tires lots. I'm running radials, and I thought I'd better check out the transmission. So my input shaft has a slight twist, nothing like Chris's. But I couldn't get my drive shaft off because the slip yoke had a nice twist at the end. So I, in order to get ready for Death Week here, I've got a new slip yoke. I thought, well, I got the drive shaft. I might as well put new U joints on, and had it rebalanced. And then I had a spare input shaft, so it's on as well. And I'll take the slightly bent one with me as a backup if I need it. But
so, Chris, on your input shaft, how many splines is it twisted?
I'd have to go take a look again, but probably 2 or 3.
Is it cracked?
No, it didn't crack this time. It's not near as bad as the last one, but I almost didn't even realize at first. Yeah, there you go. Rich has one.
Is that the last one?
Yeah, this is the one I just took out.
Oh, that's this one. Holy mackerel.
So, but I almost didn't realize it at first because I just pulled the transmission back far enough. Like I was just going to check the shaft basically. Pulled it back just far enough, got in there with the light, and the collar that the aluminum tube that the slave rides on was covering all of that bent. And so I was looking at the splines and I was like, man, they look pretty good. Like, but it looks like it chewed up. Looks like it galled the aluminum on the collar just a little bit. It's like, well, I might as well pull it out and clean that up. Maybe give it the embry cloth treatment or something, and then put it back together. But as soon as I pulled that off, I was like, oh, now I gotta pull this transmission apart again.
Yeah,
So.
I can tell you that I did only the 2 days, Pueblo and Kearney, and mine has a little tiny twist to it.
Yeah,
maybe half or a quarter of a spline, but it's barely noticeable, but it's there.
we're gonna have to ask those guys if they'll give discounts on like 10 packs or something. We're gonna split it up between us.
Yeah, totally. Bulk buy.
Yeah.
Well, except mine's a Ford input, and you guys are both GM, so
Yeah.
I could probably just do a 10-pack on my own.
hopefully the 29 splines will be out soon, and we can get some discs to match, and hopefully that'll solve that problem.
What are there other options? I mean, that's really it. Like, they're just as hard as they can be right now, and that's kind of it, right?
Yeah, unless they decide to make a quail in a gear. then they can make them out of, or they could temper them different. Maybe even make them out of different material. That's how PPG does it.
So educate me. What is that exactly? A quill.
So basically, they have a fourth gear with the face plating, and then they have a separate input shaft that's just the shaft that presses in. And because they do that, they can make them different material. One specifically to accept the shock that it gets from the clutch disc, and then the gear being different where it's meshing with another gear.
So is it like a splined press fit? Obviously, so it doesn't turn.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Huh, that's a good idea. I mean, and on the 29 spline stuff, I mean, obviously you got to get a different clutch disc hub. But then will that fit the standard throwout bearings, or is it too big? You got to swap all that stuff out. Do you know?
I'm guessing, but I would think you probably need to swap that all out, because like mine is very tight. Like as soon as it starts bending that shaft, it grabs the aluminum and starts gulling it up and filling the threads. So there's no extra room there. So
Yeah. So I'm guessing if you're running a hydraulic throwout, like, well, you and I know both are, we have to get all new for that too. So it's quite a bit. I mean, and then any discs that we have won't work anymore because the 26 won't work, obviously. So interesting. Huh.
Why don't we talk here before we get too carried away? So what the final in the stick shift was Chris Hein with only because he probably could have made more passes if he wanted to, but he went 872 at 100 and I don't know what his mile an hour was. Probably like 167 was probably your best mile an hour.
There's
what was your best pass for the week?
My best pass or the best pass that I can hand in.
No, best pass, whether you could hand it in or not.
It was an 847 at 168. So,
dude, that's so awesome.
So,
it just creates problems. You know that, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I had 3 of those in Bandamere that I couldn't use. So,
oy.
Yeah, and that pass, you were only going 130 miles an hour, weren't you?
Which one was that?
Well, like when you went 847, you still were nowhere near close to your best 8th mile.
No, that was still 168 mile an hour out the back. Those were just, I didn't have a whole lot of power in the car. Like I was slowly taking power out of the car pretty much all week, but the biggest reason was I was getting a little bit more used to it again. I mean, I got the driver mods were starting to kick in, so I didn't need the same power anymore.
Man, and you were putting like 16 pounds to it, is that right?
Yeah, those like 16, 17 pounds to run those basically 850s. So,
brother,
at least
impressive.
At least when you had the in-car of 1320s with you and you missed a shift, it made for great video of my car because you stayed right with me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that stupid camera. Every time, the only time they had their video in the car, I blew a shift.
Yeah, been there, done that. Every time camera's coming towards you with the camera, it's like, oh, there goes that pass.
Yeah,
we need to make sure that camera's in that car every pass.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And then I was in second place with an 894. So I averaged in the 8s, which was my goal because I wanted to see how close I could get to the drag and drive world champion. Currently, I'm number 2, but I know I'm going to move down. There'll be some other people that compete at Devin's event that I'm sure will bump me down. But if I'm anywhere in the top 10, I'll be happy with that.
Congrats, then, Rich. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, congrats.
And then Brent, 911 for his, which is pretty darn awesome, knowing that he had a borrowed motor and he was playing right on the edge till the very last pass, and then kind of jumped
Is
over a little.
is your emergency line 911 in Canada like it is here?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, because I think that motor was saying something 911, 911, and then it kicked the rods out.
Yeah.
Oh
The
boy.
sad part is that I didn't add any more power to it, but it definitely made a little bit more power on the pass in the semifinals because it slipped the clutch there, and it got pretty cool that night. So I'm pretty sure it was just the air got that much better that it made enough more power that it was able to slip the clutch because I was just had enough weight on it to keep it locked up barely, right? But
Yeah, you added weight between the last two passes, right?
yeah, I think it was before the finals, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
what you said. It lugged it down just a little bit,
Yeah.
and then it said, "We're done. Thank you for playing."
Thanks for coming out.
So it would make sense that it did turn a bearing then for it to come apart like that because we weren't really pushing it power wise, but I wasn't really happy with the oil pressure on that motor all week. Typically my motors will run around like low 60s, like it'll cruise down the highway at about 52, 53 pounds, and this one was only running about 42, 43 pounds down the highway and about that down the track actually. So I
And
wasn't.
what weight oil and what oil do you run?
Shell T6 synthetic 540.
40 weight. Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
I run a driven 550 right now.
Okay.
And I'm usually about 60 cruising down the highway, unless you're really working it. And then, like when we were pulling the camper on the way home, it would dip down to about 50, just oil temperature getting hot. So, but down track, it usually starts out around 90 and usually kind of evens out right around 70, 75 the rest of the way down the track. So
Interesting.
Why don't we talk about launch procedure? Why don't we start with Brent and so Brent, you run a Vertigate too, but you also have an adjustable clutch. But why don't you tell us some of your bracket racing secrets there, Mister
Mr. Bracket Racer.
So what gear do you do your burnout in, and then talk us through your procedure when you go up stage car
And even just before, because we've talked a little bit about this, especially with Frank Romano, kind of the mental gymnastics some of us do to get ready for a pass, because it's no joke, driving 1,000+ horsepower stick car at the track. Like, do you do anything, or you just get in the car and go?
For me, I just don't like being rushed. I don't like jumping in and belting up very last minute and then trying to go. It doesn't set right with me. I always like being able to get in there and lots of guys don't like to be talked to and stuff. I'm not like that at all. You can talk to me right till I pull in the burnout box. That doesn't bother me at all. Literally, like, things can be as chaotic as they are at the track, and once I get in there and belt it in the staging lanes, I could go to sleep. Like, it's just, that's where I'm happy. And so basically I take the car to 160 degrees every time before I pull up to the burnout box. That's where my mapping is consistent, and then the car is very consistent when I do that. And I always do a second gear burnout. I don't shift in the burnout box or anything. Lots of guys don't recommend it with that 5R doing. You can shift it in the burnout box, but G-Force recommended if I can just get away with a second gear burnout and it's sufficient, then it'll live a lot and longer and be happier. So that's what I try and do. And then, so I don't do crazy burnouts or anything. I don't need a lot. And when I pull up the line, I just kind of coast up there. And once I'm up close to the line, I set a little brake pressure. I don't have a brake pressure gauge. I wish I did. But I kind of got that happy spot where it's usually pretty consistent where I can feel it, set a little brake pressure on my line lock, and then I just go in and stage. And putting a clutch stop in my car so it was dead consistent where the clutch was releasing every time was huge for me, because as much as I love doing the stick car heads up stuff, there's just not enough of that racing here, and I like to race. So I'll go bracket racing and stuff, and my car is not as consistent as all the hitter bracket cars at Saskatoon or in Alberta or anything. Those guys are good. So but at least I can go and play and have some fun. But yeah,
Where's your line lock?
on the top of my shifter.
And what RPM do you launch at typically?
Typically, I've
Two-step?
been right around 44 to 49 is usually where it's not too violent, and it can just I can get about, I try and slip the clutch about 0.7 seconds is usually where my car is the happiest. And I just dead hook it. I don't try for wheel speed. I find that lots of guys, the old school mentality was always try for wheel speed and everything. And that's fine for a big tire car. But for us with the power that we can make and launching on a small tire, I find that when you are flirting with trying to get wheel speed, it just goes into tire smoke. So I find dead hooking it is a lot more consistent.
Yeah, it seems to be once you, like if you do spin the tire, the engine builds RPM and then it builds boost and it just goes out of control.
Exactly.
It just blows the tires off. That's been my experience too.
Yeah.
No shock sensors on the car?
No, I don't. I need to get to it. I've got all kinds of inputs and outputs on the Holly Dominator, and I'm not using them all by any means. But yeah, I need to do what you're doing. I need to get the Cadillac ones, and then they're not crazy priced or anything.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit, Rich, because I don't know that people know that on yours, what you're using, because it's pretty smart.
With the MS3 Pro Evo that I'm using, you can bolt on anything, and probably same with you guys. But yeah, I just get Rock Auto Cadillac ride height sensors, and I have one in the front, one in the back, and I actually don't concern myself too much with the number. You can see the trend. You can see when the front wheel's going up, when it tops out. Same with the back wheel. Works great. It taught me a lot. It also continually teaches me that if you don't pay attention to it, it's usually telling you something that you should pay attention to. Like in the shootout at the end, it was pretty chaotic. The first pass was somewhat controversial, and then we had to get back up there again to rerun it. And if I would have spent a little bit more time looking at the data, I would have seen that the front and rear shocks were topping out right where it was blowing the tires off in about 1 second. So a couple of clicks on the shock, and I would have been a lot better off. But they were slick. They're like $30. They're cheap. You might as well buy 4. Then you got a couple of spares if you need them. But they're really OEM, and they're easy to mount. Fabricate a little bracket, and they work really well. It gives you some.
And they're designed for they're designed for the elements. Whereas, I mean, I appreciate all the aftermarket ones, but they don't have the OEM, 200,000 mile engineering plan in place. So I'm a big fan of OEM parts when you can run them for sure.
Yeah. Hey, Brent, did you clutchless shift in yours?
Yeah, I shipped off the limiter. So with the Holly, you can run, probably lots of guys have heard Jonathan Atkins talk about how he does it. And basically, when I first started running the Holly, I just talked to Jonathan himself, and he was able to say exactly how to set it up. And I run a 1200 RPM window in it. So I'll for my motor, I shift at 72. So I have the high set at 72 and then the low set at 6,000. And so I just run it right into the limiter, and I just put a little pressure on my shifter, and as it hits the limiter, it just falls right into the next gear effortlessly. And it seems to make the transmission really, really live. Like G-Force rate my transmission for 1,300 horsepower, and my motor was making all that. And I have, like, in 3 years now racing that transmission, I've put a first gear in it because it was starting to pit, and I put a slider in it because it took a little, just from misadjustment on my shifter, actually just took a little bit of heat, and it was starting to get some fine cracking in it. So it's pretty hard to complain about the longevity of that transmission for that many passes and that little damage.
Yeah, that's impressive.
We got a pretty good G-Force advertisement group right here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Send input shafts.
Yes. We're not sponsored yet, but I'd sign up for that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Awesome. So Chris, talk about your mental state and staging and exactly what you do.
I'm not sure I'm the model at this by any means. I'm only one season into this, so I'm still listening to you guys every week and taking it all in. But for me, it's there's always that game of when do you start putting your helmet on and get in the car, especially when it's 30 degrees outside. Because I'm same as Brent. I don't like being rushed.
That's
But
freezing. What are you talking about?
yeah,
It's like freezing at 30 degrees.
sorry, 90 Bill.
Oh, Fahrenheit. Yes, of
So
course. I forgot.
yeah,
This is the Canadian podcast, Bill. Get with
that's
the
right.
program.
Yeah.
3 out of 4, you got to get with the times here. So, but when it's hot like that, you don't want to get dressed up way too quick and then be sitting there for half an hour, 45 minutes just baking. So, but once you kind of get through that, as I'm usually pretty calm. I don't get too nervous. I usually get nervous before I kind of get in the car. But once you're strapped in and ready to go, then the nerves usually go away. So, but I usually just roll up to my burnout box. I do second gear burnouts, a little bit of RPM, dump the clutch, and just kind of roll out of it. Try not to do real big burnouts. I don't usually need real big ones. So, and then for my staging, lately I've just been rolling up to the beams. The car stays quite stable, so I just kind of roll into the beams, and as soon as I get that second bulb lit, get up on the two step and get ready to go. So I've been practicing lots this year, trying to get more consistent on that 400 Pro tree. It just in the stick car, it sneaks up on you so fast, just because you're essentially idling, just inching into the beams, and then as soon as you get that bottom bulb lit, then you got to get up, and it only takes about a second to build boost, but it's just trying to get used to how fast that whole process goes. So
Your car's pretty violent, like I don't know, 50 caliber machine gun violent when you're on the two step. So
yeah,
how do you set that up? You just use the boost builder and the Holly, or what do you do?
that's all I've got in there right now is just the Holly boost builder. But I'm going to look at some other options because it has a little bit of a cough, and that's essentially two issues that I had going into the shootout there on the last day. We lined up, and I ended up getting into I bumped in, he bumped in, and then I bumped into the second bulb. And because I wanted to be ready, so I bumped in rather quick on the second one and got up on the two step ready to go. But racing a turbo car, pretty much the majority of the season, I've been racing all stick cars. So everyone's, it doesn't take the stick guys, 5 seconds to bump in. But by the time he bumped in, it ended up coughing on the two step, and just as I dumped the clutch, essentially, or let out the clutch, so it fell right on its face. It fell down to 2,500 RPM or whatever, and then so it took some time before it got going again. And I might have been able to catch him because I had a lot of power in it, but with that much power, I ended up hitting a dome. The dome pressure spiked on the 2-3 shift, and then it reverted to gate. So instead of it making 23 and a half or 24 pounds like I wanted it to, it made 7. And then I just cruised out the back, watched him drive away. So
Yeah, that's rough.
the Draggy said that was a 881 pass, and
On 7 pounds.
well, the back half was 7 pounds, and that was like a 165 or a 170 60 foot.
Wow.
What was your best?
Mid track
60
was
foot?
Pardon?
What was your best 60 foot in the week?
135, I think, was the best one. We weren't getting after it real hard. Just trying to do more consistent passes, not blow the tires off or anything. So
Yeah, you got to finish to win. That's part of it.
Yeah.
It's part of the tactic. Yeah.
So
Nice. All right, we got any other questions there, Rich?
Well, let's just have a look at the sheet here. And so a couple of us are got another trip planned in like 3 days here. just a short. I think it's 1,600 miles to get there, 2,000 miles to do the event, and another 1,600 miles home. So I was doing.
And it's not even Florida.
It's not even Florida. Yeah, I was all prepped to do it without the trailer, but once I put the fuel jugs on and everything, I think my headlights were pointing at the moon, so it would have been slung pretty low in the back. And if I would have had to do any roadside repairs, it would have been a yard sale every time. So I bailed on that idea after thinking about it all night. And so, but I'm pretty much ready to go. I was just working on my stereo before the podcast. So I guess that's a good sign when you're. Well, part of the reason when I drive so much is it tends to rattle everything loose. So you Loctite it, but after thousands and thousands and thousands of miles, stuff tends to come loose. So,
did you Loctite your flywheel bolts, Rich?
yes, and a trick for all those folks out there: don't Loctite the bolts. Put them in the crankshaft, and then screw them in. Because if you and I talked to a few people that this happened to, where they used to put them on the bolt and then screw the bolt in, it would actually get between the flywheel and the crank and eventually loosen up a bit. So now I just make sure I always put the Loctite right on the crankshaft and then screw the bolt in. So then it goes forward and it doesn't get trapped between the two. Haven't had any problems since. So.
Nice. So Death Week coming up for you. Lots of miles. How many tracks? 4 tracks, 5 tracks? Starts in Phoenix.
It's 4 race days, all 8th mile, which is part of the reason I was thinking I could leave a bunch of stuff behind, but there's still lots of stuff in the trailer. Something that could get Chris or I home, a whole transmission, and then I'm like, I don't need to bring the clutch out. I might as well throw it in. So there's a spare clutch, spare 9-inch.
So Chris, you're doing it too?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to chase Guido all the way south again.
Nice. So it starts and ends in Phoenix. Is that right?
That's right.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, if you need a stopover on the way down, I'm kind of on the way to Phoenix.
Yeah, I was looking at the map, but you're a little bit out of our way. So
yeah, you're a little bit too far west.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So.
All right, Rich, should we dive into the TKO round? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if there was anything else that you guys wanted to touch on before we do that, but we could that'll generate some good conversation too.
All right. You guys are familiar with the TKO round here. I'll kick it off. First gear, we'll start with Mr. Hein. What is the first car you owned or modified?
So the first kind of cool car, I guess, that I had is a 79 Pontiac Firebird. I bought it when I was still in high school. Yeah. Oh yeah. Pontiac motor. So it had as I was working through it, it had a Pontiac 400 that I had board stroked. We put a 467 rotating assembly in it. Still kept the old 6X heads because I can't afford heads when you're in high school. So little Performer RPM air gap, Holly 750 with the vacuum secondaries and a set of long tube headers and a camshaft and overdrive transmission. It was a pretty good fun little car for what it was at that time anyway. Learned a lot on that thing, made a lot of mistakes, learned some stuff, tried to do things yourself, realized you were way in over your head, had to get buddies buddies' dads at that time to come help because our buddies didn't know anything back then either. So, but yeah, that was kind of the first cool one I had. So, handful of years later, it went down the road. But
Stick or automatic?
yeah,
Stick or
Stick
automatic?
shift?
no, it was that was an automatic. It was a 204R with a 3,000 stall converter in it.
Did it come with a purse, or did you have to go buy one?
No, I think that might have been my first purse. That one. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. Brent, how about you?
My first car was a 91 Sunbird GT with a V6 and a 5-speed. But yeah,
Sweet.
when
Stick
you're
shift,
First.
though.
yeah,
Yes.
when you're young, you think it's pretty fast until you actually get something fast, and you're like, okay. And
Yeah.
then I actually bought my dart when I was 19, so that was kind of my first cool car. But
Very, very cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I guess
All
my
right.
first real car that I had was a Geo Metro with a 3-cylinder and a 5-speed in it. So
All
that was
right.
my first car. When we went to pick it up to do a test drive, I couldn't drive stick, and my mom went with me at the time, and she didn't know how to drive it either. We fumbled our way through.
Nice. Nice.
Okay, let's
All
bring
right.
her into second gear. So what, in your opinion, we'll go with Chris again, has been the biggest technology change to move our sport forward?
I've listened to this question so many times, and I've always came back to the answer of the EFI and that kind of stuff. But I'm going to go a little different route on it. I kind of figured this one was coming, and I want to say just the readily available help when it comes to trying to figure out problems. Like, I mean, back when you had to go over to your other race buddy's house and try to sort out the problems or figure out what you were doing, that kind of thing. Now you just jump online, go on Facebook, find somebody that's fast, ask them some questions. Most of the time they'll answer you. Search some forums, that kind of stuff. But just the information on how to do this is so much more abundant. I mean, a year ago, I knew absolutely nothing about stick shift racing, to be honest, and we just started talking to guys, started listening to the podcast and that kind of stuff, and just getting a better base of knowledge before we really started on how we wanted to tackle this program and try to make a program that was going to work. So just the readily available communication with other good racers and good people.
So basically, he's going that fast, Bill, because of us. Is
Pretty
what's
much.
going on here.
It makes sense. It makes total sense. Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome,
I
Chris.
just took your guys' program.
Thanks
And
for taking it.
why are you guys trying to do it with so much weight?
Well, it's because our balls are so big.
Yeah, right.
The brains are really small. Yeah.
So we're maybe
it's-
find that number 3 magnet there that you've been looking for.
Oh, maybe. Is that a hint?
All right, Brent,
Okay.
same question for you.
I pretty much agree with Chris, actually, because I think the internet, because you look back that guys all our dad's age and stuff that were getting out of stick car racing and just and it was dying, right? And it's seen a huge resurgence in the last decade, basically, or less even, because of the internet and guys being able to communicate, and obviously some top-notch suppliers being able to step up to the plate and give us some stuff to work with too, obviously. But yeah, I think the internet has been huge for it.
Awesome. So before Bill asks you the next question, please add in who your co-pilot was and what they thought of this event. When to the other answer to the question. Go ahead, Bill.
All right. So we're gonna slam it into third gear. Palm it into third. If you could spend one day with someone, who would it be and what would you do? This could be live or dead.
Oh, I don't. Brent, you might have to go first. I've heard this question, but I don't got a good answer for that.
I think I just did it. I had my dad come. He flew out from New Brunswick. I met him at the airport, picked him up. We did all a race week together. Had a phenomenal time. He's never done a drag and drive ever. Didn't really know what it was all about, and we had a great time. Like, so that's my answer.
That's awesome.
It was my dad.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was
Chris,
awesome.
now it's your turn.
It was awesome to have your dad there. He was
Yeah.
it was a blast, and you could tell he was super proud of his son and having a great time at the same time. So yeah, it was pretty
Agreed.
awesome.
Thanks.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if there's I don't have just one person, that I would really like to meet or, that kind of thing. I mean, there's, for me, part of what I enjoy about doing this kind of stuff is just meeting the whole group. We met Tom and Blaine there. They hung out for a few days. Bill Lee came down and visited for a while. And I mean, there's just tons of people that you meet along the way, that you make friends with, could connect again next year, that kind of stuff. So, for me, I just enjoy the big group, the big family that it becomes these race week events.
And who came with you?
And then, I took my girlfriend Rayanne. She came with me. She was slinging tires and wrenches all week and doing a real good job there. So we had a pretty fun trip. So
Was she slinging these all week too?
just me. I'm the only one that slings those.
Armstrong. No, yeah, she was a real trooper too. That was awesome to have her along too, because sometimes that can go either way, but she definitely seemed like she was having a good time, and even on the side of the road in the middle of Wyoming with dragging a trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was a good sport.
She's been through that for a while now. We've had a few breakdowns in the old car together.
Nice.
All right, we're gonna slam her down into fourth gear. What influences you to build your cars?
Well, you two. Right there.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
You're making a lot of poor life choices.
Yeah.
Yes, he's helping me make some more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crank it up.
Oh yeah, great. Brent?
Started out as my dad, definitely. Because when I was kind of in that most impressionable years, the early teens or whatever, he actually bought a 67 Dart drag car. And I just kind of got a weird infatuation with him. I always liked him. They're a nice, light little, or relatively light little race car. And then as it's kind of two-part for me, because actually if you listen to Brian Lone's podcast on the 1992 streetcar deal that Hot Rod Magazine put together and everything else like that, back then my dad bought every single magazine, like not every single, but Carcraft, Hot Rod, some Mopar Muscles and stuff like that. And I remember reading that cover to cover over and over and over, all that whole streetcar scene back when Rob Sabre's bet it was doing it. And it was funny, like I forgot a lot of the guys' names actually until I listened to that podcast, and I was like, oh yeah, I couldn't believe that. And then so I've literally listened to that podcast probably 6 or 8 times now. I just keep listening to it. Whenever I'm bored, I'll throw that podcast on because it brings me down memory lane a little bit, I guess. And so that definitely shaped the way that I wanted to go with my Dart 100%.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Brian's
all right.
Listen to.
Brian does a phenomenal
right,
job with that podcast.
Well,
Yeah.
Which podcast is this? I'm familiar with his one.
The Dorkomotive.
Oh, Dorkomotive. Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. So the first, in some transmissions, the first fifth gear or the first overdrive, or in your case, Brent, 1-to-1. Either way, it's fifth. And what, in your opinion, is the secret to stick shift racing?
Well, I think I know what it is now, but I'm still not doing it properly. Obviously, clutch management is key. So,
Huge.
yeah. Some obviously that's why I got 2 twisted up input shafts sitting on the shelf, because realistically I probably shouldn't be having those issues at my weight, but I still am. So it's obviously a clutch management. So
what are you going to go to a slipper clutch like Rich and Brent?
I think so. I'm currently waiting for that 29 spline to come out. Hopefully it comes out here soon, because I don't have any spare shafts left now. So, but I'll probably upgrade to that 29 and a slipper at the same time. So, I think there's a lot more left in the 60 foot in that car, and getting it through the 330. And if I can get some more consistent launches with a slipper clutch versus just my left leg doing whatever it does, then I should be able to do some more suspension tuning and really get after that 330.
So before Brent does this, let me ask you, you're already faster than your cage cert. So what are you hoping to accomplish? Like 8th mile stuff where you can just kill it? That's not a ET barrier?
A little bit of both. I mean, yes, it's cage limited, and I'm quite happy with what we did here this week, or this last week at race week. So if I could repeat those, that'll be good. But yeah, I want to be able to make it faster for some of those shootouts and stuff. So, and especially like a lot of the shootouts and stuff around here have been going 8th mile. A couple of our tracks are 8th mile, and the rest of them are just. It's cheaper for those guys. You know, they only have to lay half as much glue in with the glue shortage and that kind of thing. We did a lot of 8th mile racing lately, so if I can turn it up some more and make it more consistent, at least then I might have the option to play in like a small tire class or something like that if there's no stick shift classes. So
nice. All right, Brent.
I think it's data management. For the most part, I think we all kind of know the parts that we need, like whether they can vary, obviously, between all our cars are so different, yet we're all still running very close times, but, and with very different parts, a lot of it. But us, a lot of times looking at that data, and just like what Rich said earlier with shock data and stuff like that, if we're looking at it and overlooking it, then we're not helping ourselves any. So if we can, the biggest key for me is really looking over the data logs with a fine-tooth comb, seeing what's going on. Because every one of us can say, as we're sitting here, that you come back from a pass and thought that you felt something, and then you look at the data and you're like, no. Whether you chicken-footed it or whatever the case may be, the data doesn't lie. So as long as we can find what the information that's in there, then I think that's key.
You know, the worst data is that damn TPS sensor.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's rough.
Yeah.
All right.
Were you full throttle when you made your quickest pass during the week, Chris?
No, not the whole thing.
Me either. So yeah, but you were like half throttle, and then you finally decided, hey, I should put my foot through the floor.
There's a few of those, yeah. My gas pedal is quite stiff, and I really have to think about using all of it for it to actually happen.
We should put some extra springs on that thing so it's stiffer.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of us with 6 gear, what advice would you give to somebody getting into this sport?
Oof. Make sure you got a few bucks to put away for those extra input shafts you're gonna need. So it's a good time. It's fun. It's really rewarding, but it is expensive. Maybe when it comes down to, if I could have just bought a glide, a top of the line glide is half the price of that 6-speed. So they're definitely expensive, but they are a really good time.
You'd still be driving back from race week though.
I might be, yeah.
It's true.
I know we were cruising down I think it was Brent and I were ripping down the road there on the way back, and or on one of the legs there, and we ran up on the back of a group of 2-speeds going 55 mile an hour
At like 3,500 RPM.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that might have happened a few times to us.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Brent,
I mean,
who doesn't have sixth gear,
The best advice I could give is just kind of find a combo that you're kind of looking to build, if that's possible, and hang out with them, or even help pit with them, or just kind of see what they're going through firsthand, though, not just reading on the internet. Even though I said the internet's a huge help, but actually being real track time with a car that's similar combo to what you want to do is going to be the best information you could see and do.
yeah, that's a good point for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Rich's car was the first experience I ever had with a face-plated transmission. Like I could hear it. I was like, God, is that thing broken? And then I think you let me drive it at one point, and I was just like, oh, yeah. And that started that long decline. But yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, let me put a huge thanks out to Stick Shift Nation for hosting this podcast. And of course, you can find our Clutch Burners podcast on pretty much any of the podcast platforms and YouTube if you want to see our beautiful faces. And if you'd like to see the Clutch Burners podcast continue to grow, head over to Stick Racing, grab a Stick Shift Nation shirt, hat, or sticker. And I think that's about it. So stickracing.com, get all your stuff.
yeah. And thanks,
I think that's
thanks,
it.
Chris and Brent for your time. I know you guys are both busy. One's ripping apart a motor, another one's getting ready to come on another cruise.
Yeah.
Looking forward to another cruise. As much as I harass you about following me around or chasing me around, I'm not sure what it is, and kicking my butt. It's really cool to have another stick car, drive that far, and do the same sort of gig. I mean, it's pretty awesome to have you with me there. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, you guys are welcome. Thank you so much.